There was once a fisherman called Jack who lived off the west coast of Ireland, and occasionally there would be shipwrecks. Jack would take out his little boat and he would try and rescue the poor sailors from drowning. Unfortunately, though, on this particular day, there were no men to save. Everyone had drowned. But what Jack did see floating amongst the debris on the top of the ocean were barrels and kegs of wine and whiskey and port. So Jack decided, what harm, he was going to rescue a few bottles. So as he's pulling the barrels and kegs onto his little boat, he sees a hideous creature suddenly bob up from beneath the surface of the water. It's a deep, like sea green with grassy hair, a red nose, little red piggy eyes, scaly feet and legs, and a full-on fish tail. It's a merrow, Ireland's answer to mermaids. And the merrow catches sight of Jack. He holds up a bottle that he's clearly stolen from the newly wrecked ship and winks at Jack. And Jack, not wanting to be rude, smiles and waves and sort of gestures to the last barrel bobbing in front of his boat, not wanting to cause a fight. Well, the merrow swims over, smiles, and starts to strike up a conversation with Jack. They discover that, they have a few things in common. Their love of alcohol and whiskey, and, they have a little bit of a friendly argument about where the best fishing is to be had. And soon enough, the merrow is inviting Jack back to his house to see his beautiful wine cellar. Again, Jack can't find a polite way to say no, so the merrow takes off his weird broad-rimmed hat, slaps it on Jack's head, tells him to grab hold of his tail, and then dives into the ocean, dragging poor Jack with him. They sink like rocks to the bottom of the seabed. Jack's lungs are about to burst. He thinks this is all a terrible trick. He's going to die, when suddenly he's looking up at the ocean like the sky over his head. He can breathe. He's lying on the warm, grey sand, and there in front of him is the merrow and the merrow's little sea cottage on the bottom of the ocean floor. He goes inside. There's a beautiful fish platter laid out. They have some rum, they have some scotch, and then the merrow, true to his word, shows him around the wine cellar. And it's beautiful. It's not just full of rows and rows of kegs and barrels and rescued beautiful ancient bottles of wine that clearly this merrow has been collecting for hundreds of years from shipwrecks. But there's also all kinds of curiosities, fine silks, exotic cottons, like spices and jars, all manner of things. And then Jack sees in the corner, those are very odd-looking lobster pots that you have there. And the merrow laughs. No, those aren't lobster pots, Jack. Those are my soul jars. So as well as, rescuing things from the shipwrecks, I'll leave a few of these jars out in the hopes of catching the souls of the drowned sailors. And then I can bring them home here where it's, nice and dry and keep them safe. And Jack can't think of anything but the poor souls trapped in those jars beneath the ocean for hundreds and hundreds of years. So he hatches a plan. He invites the merrow back to his house next time, to return the favour. And he plots. He's going to get the merrow fierce drunk and somehow rescue those poor souls from the jars. Sure enough, the merrow turns up. He's got his trusty hat on him. He sits down. Jack has prepared a nice meal. And then he tells the merrow, I bet you've never had poaching. And of course the merrow's like, no, what the heck is that? And he's like, poaching is basically Irish moonshine. He's like, you're never going to find that on the bottom of a Dutch ship. And he waters down his own drink and then gives twice as many measures to the merrow as he gives himself. And sure enough, the merrow is absolutely, completely drunk. He's singing sea shanties. He's, dancing on the table. He's giggling to himself. Eventually he gets a little bit sleepy and falls asleep under the kitchen table. Jack wastes no time, grabs the hat, runs out into the ocean, finds his way down to the sea cottage on the bottom of the ocean floor, runs into the cellar and starts upending the pots, unsealing them, shaking them, hoping against hope that the souls somehow manage to find their way out of the jar and escape, rushes back to his house and, thankfully, the merrow is still snoring beneath his kitchen table, deep asleep. He pops the hat back on the merrow, wakes him up, bids him good night and sends him out. And then he waits. Now this is quite rare, that in an Irish story, particularly one involving the wild Atlantic, that there's actually a happy ending. You see, the Merrow never realizes that the souls are no longer in the jars in his collection. So a while later, he turns up to Jack's house with a beautiful bottle of scotch, and Jack returns the favour with an equally nice bottle of poitín, and a beautiful friendship is born. And the Merrow never realizes what Jack has done.